You have had the conversation, maybe about a product you were thinking of buying, maybe about a place you were considering visiting, maybe about a health concern, a relationship problem, a financial worry. Some is something private, something you had not typed into any search engine, had not mentioned in any app, just a conversation, out loud, in your own home, and then you opened your phone, and there it was, an advertisement, a recommendation, a piece of content that seemed to know exactly what you had just been talking about. And for a moment, maybe longer than a moment, you wondered, is it listening? The rational part of you knows the answer is probably no. Not in the way you imagine. Not some hidden microphone capturing your every word and routing it to an advertising server. The logistics of that, the bandwidth, the processing power, the legal exposure, make it technically implausible for the scale at which it would need to operate. And yet the feeling persists. The feeling that something, somewhere, knows more about you than it should. That the boundaries between your private thoughts and the public world of algorithms have become permeable in ways you cannot fully see or measure. That feeling is not paranoia. It is something more interesting and more important. To understand why you feel watched even when nothing is watching, you need to understand a concept that predates the internet by 2 centuries, the panopticon. In 1787, the English philosopher Jeremy Bentham designed a prison. Not an ordinary prison. A prison built around a single architectural principle. The inmates could be observed at any moment by a central guard, but they could never know when they were actually being observed. The guard tower was designed to be visible from every cell, but the windows were angled so the prisoners could not see whether the guard was present or absent, watching or not watching. Bentham's insight was that you did not actually need to watch the prisoners. You only needed them to believe they might be watched at any moment. The possibility of observation was enough to produce the effect of observation. The prisoners would regulate their own behavior, not because they were being watched, but because they might be. In 1975, French philosopher Michel Foucault took Bentham's architectural concept and expanded it into a theory of modern power in his landmark work, Discipline and Punish. Foucault argued that the panopticon was not just a prison design. It was a model for how modern societies exercise control by creating the conditions under which people monitor and regulate their own behavior because they have internalized the possibility of being observed. The panopticon works not through force. It works through psychology. Now consider what it means to live inside the digital surveillance infrastructure that has been built over the past 20 years. You know, because previous videos in this series have documented it. The data is being collected about you continuously. That tracking pixels fire when you load a web page. That data brokers hold thousands of data points about you. That AI systems can predict your behavior with startling accuracy from data you never intentionally provided. You know this, and the knowing changes you. Research by scholar John Penny at the Citizen Lab has documented what he calls the chilling effect of surveillance awareness, the measurable change in behavior that occurs when people know or believe they are being monitored. His research, published in the Columbia Law Review, found that following the 2013 Snowden revelations about government surveillance, Wikipedia saw a statistically significant drop in traffic to pages about terrorism, extremism, and other sensitive topics, even from people who had no reason to fear legal consequences for reading them. People changed their reading behavior, not because they were breaking any law, but because they had become aware that their reading behavior was potentially observable. The panopticon effect is real, and it is not limited to government surveillance. Any surveillance awareness, including the vague, pervasive sense that your digital behavior is being monitored by commercial AI systems, produces measurable changes in what people say, what they search for, what they share, and what they think. But the feeling of being watched goes deeper than the chilling effect. It has a specific neurological basis that researchers have only recently begun to fully document. Neuroscientist Ethan Kross at the University of Michigan, who has spent years studying the psychology of self-awareness and social observation, has found that the experience of being observed, or of believing you might be observed, activates the same neural circuits as social threat. Your brain does not cleanly distinguish between the discomfort of being judged by a person in the room and the discomfort of knowing that an algorithm has logged your behavior. Both activate what researchers call the social evaluation network, the brain regions associated with self-monitoring, reputation management, and the anticipation of social consequences. An activation of this network is cognitively expensive. It consumes attention and working memory resources that would otherwise be available for clear, unself-conscious thinking. In plain English, the sense of being watched by AI makes you think differently, not dramatically, not in a way you can necessarily point to, but the chronic, low-level activation of social evaluation circuitry, the persistent background sense that your behavior is observable and being assessed, changes the quality of your thinking in ways that are measurable and consequential. You are less spontaneous, less creative, less willing to explore ideas that feel risky or unconventional, less able to be fully present in your own life because some portion of your cognitive resources is perpetually allocated to the management of your observed self. There is another layer to this that researcher Shoshana Zuboff at Harvard Business School, whose work on surveillance capitalism we have examined in previous videos, calls the behavioral modification function of surveillance. The goal of surveillance capitalism, Zuboff argues, is not merely to predict your future behavior. It is to modify it, to nudge, shape, and direct your choices in ways that serve the commercial interests of the entities running the surveillance infrastructure. And crucially, this modification does not require you to know it is happening. It operates through the same channels that advertising has always operated through, by shaping the information environment in which you make decisions, without your awareness or consent. But surveillance-based behavioral modification is more precise than traditional advertising. Because it is calibrated to your individual behavioral profile, it can target the specific contexts, emotional states, and decision points at which you are most susceptible to influence. It does not need to change your values or your explicit beliefs. It only needs to be present at the moment when your guard is down. At 2 in the morning, in a moment of loneliness, in the 15 seconds of restlessness between one task and the next. And here is the feedback loop that makes the feeling of being watched so persistent and so psychologically costly. The more you are aware of the surveillance, the more you activate the social evaluation network. The more you activate the social evaluation network, the more self-conscious and guarded your behavior becomes. The more guarded your behavior, the more it diverges from your unobserved authentic self. And that divergence, the gap between who you are when you feel watched and who you are when you do not, is experienced as a chronic, low-grade form of inauthenticity that is deeply uncomfortable. The feeling that something is off, that you are performing rather than living, that the life you are inhabiting is slightly less yours than it should be. Now here is what the research suggests about how to navigate this. Researcher Carissa Vallis at Oxford University, author of Privacy is Power, argues that privacy is not, as it is commonly framed, merely a personal preference or a legal right. It is a political and cognitive necessity. Without the experience of genuine private space, space that is not observed, not logged, not potentially influenced by surveillance systems, human beings cannot fully develop autonomous thought, cannot fully explore the boundaries of their own minds, cannot take the cognitive risks that produce genuine creativity, genuine intimacy, and genuine self-knowledge. Privacy is not the absence of something. It is the presence of something irreplaceable, the conditions under which genuine human interiority can develop and flourish. Researcher Evan Selinger at Rochester Institute of Technology has argued that the erosion of privacy through digital surveillance is not merely a legal problem. It is an anthropological one, a change in the conditions under which human beings exist as thinking, feeling, choosing subjects. When the possibility of observation is constant and pervasive, something changes in the quality of human experience that cannot be fully recovered by legal reform or technical privacy tools. Here is the counterintuitive part. The solution to feeling watched is not purely technical. Deleting apps, using a VPN, covering your camera. These are useful, but they address the symptom rather than the cause. The deeper solution is psychological, rebuilding the internal capacity to maintain a genuine private self within the digital environment, not by retreating from it, but by developing a more sophisticated and intentional relationship with it. This means recognizing, as Vallis argues, that privacy is an active practice rather than a passive condition. It means making deliberate choices about what you share, when, and with whom. It means creating protected spaces in your daily life, moments of genuine, unobserved experience, not out of paranoia, but out of the recognition that your interior life requires room to develop. And most fundamentally, it means understanding that the feeling of being watched is not a sign that something has gone wrong with you. It is a sign that the surveillance infrastructure is working exactly as designed. The discomfort you feel is not irrational. It is the appropriate response of a human nervous system to the conditions it finds itself in. Organizations like Pinnacle AI Solutions exist to help people navigate this terrain, not with alarm, but with the kind of clear-eyed strategic understanding that allows you to make informed choices about your digital life rather than simply reacting to a surveillance environment that was designed without your well-being in mind. You have had the conversation, the private one, the one you never typed into a search engine, and then you opened your phone, and there it was. The thing you need to understand is not whether the phone was listening. It probably was not in the way you imagine. The thing you need to understand is why it did not need to. Your behavioral fingerprint, built from thousands of data points about your patterns, your timing, your emotional states, your decision-making tendencies, is precise enough that a sufficiently sophisticated AI system does not need to hear what you say. It already knows what you are likely to want, need, fear, and desire, in what context, and at what moment. The feeling of being watched is real, not because something is always watching, but because something knows you well enough that it does not need to watch. And the question that should sit with you, the one that matters more than any conversation about microphones or data servers, is this: how much of the person you are today has been shaped by your awareness of that?